You are tuned in to another episode of my top 500 favorite songs, and this is part 4. If you followed along so far, we've counted down from 500 all the way to 351. Now, I actually had a bit of technical difficulties making the fourth part because I had made it before, but I guess there was an issue with YouTube and it totally flagged my video, and I had already deleted my rough copy of it, so this is actually the second take sort of doing all this. But I had come this far, I figured I might as well finish it. It was a pain to redo it, but if anything, hopefully I'll have more insight this time around. And yeah, in today's episode, we'll start right off at 350. And like I've stated in many episodes before, this is just my opinion, and hopefully it sheds some light on songs that have influenced me, that I like, that I consider good songs, ranking, least favorite to the favorite. And, nobody has to agree with me, but hopefully you'll be like, oh, maybe I'll check out some of those songs. That's the whole goal. So, here we go. 350 is the disco queen herself, Donna Summer, with her song Hot Stuff. Now, the reason I picked this song is because, as many people pointed out, it showed considerable rock direction and it moved away from the disco era, which is what really makes it great, because there's a fantastic guitar solo played by Jeff Baxter. He was ex-Doobie Brothers and Steely Dan, so he was a very good guitarist. He rips it on the solo, and it's got a really funky, upbeat, groovy sort of jam to it, because oddly enough, it was produced by English producer Pete Bellotte and Italian producer Giorgio Moroder. They actually worked on the Scarface soundtrack, so they had that very 80s pop kind of sound. And this was 1979, so it's almost ahead of its time. It's futuristic. But yeah, it's a jam. She sings really great, and unfortunately she passed, so may she rest in peace. And that's 350. 349 is the rock band Toto with their song Hold the Line. Now, they are really well known for the songs like Africa, but I personally prefer Hold the Line because it has more of a really nice rock kind of groove to it. I mean, there's the very fast piano with guys doing his runs. There's the steady riff kind of keeping it going. There's an amazing guitar solo. And see, on Africa, you wouldn't actually get to see just how good of instrumentalists they all were, just because a lot of it is kind of computer programmed with synthesizers, right? But I mean, they were all great musicians. They ended up even working with David Lynch on the original Dune soundtrack. So, solid band, great songwriters, great instrumentalists, and Hold the Line is just one of my all-time favorite rock songs in general. So I'm like, yeah. 349. 348 is the singer most famous for The Wizard of Oz, for singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and she acted in it, Judy Garland, but the song I picked was Get Happy. Now, this song has actually been recorded by many other artists, including Frank Sinatra as well. I personally really love Judy Garland's original take on it, and I actually consider it one of her best songs. In fact, it's one of those songs that shows, in some cases, like Somewhere Over the Rainbow, too, in my opinion, and even Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. She could sing certain songs better than anybody else. She had a very magical, powerful, and moving way. She didn't have to be the best singer, but she presented the honest quality of who she was. And it's sad that her career later declined and she ended up doing drugs and stuff like that, because she really was a talented artist. And Get Happy, she had done in a musical too as well. So, yeah, it's a jam. Check it out. 347 is the funk group the Commodores with their song Lady in brackets You Bring Me Up. Now, this was a group that Lionel Richie started in before he went solo, and he was known as like the balladeer in the group because he sang on a lot of songs like Three Times a Lady and stuff like that. But this one is one of the rare examples where he was in the Commodore singing like, a ballad, but it still had that funk. I mean, the way the strings kind of keep it moving, and it's got a really bouncy groove too with the synthesizers and the bass combined. It it has a whole new life of it, and it has almost like a symphony feeling at times, and yet it has that just funky groove that just keeps it going, and it's awesome. In fact, I think that's why he was also able to make a lot of songs later on, like You Are the Sun and All Night Long. They come to mind because they have that kind of up tempo funky groovy beat too, and yeah, it's just a great song. 346 is Kanye West featuring Adam Levine of Maroon 5 with their song Heard 'Em Say. Now, this was back in sort of what I consider the golden era of Kanye's music, back when he was still coming off of being the hot producer, like for Jay-Z, that tip. And when he first started a lot of his solo songs, he had gone through a lot of personal trouble. So it helped inspire some of his best songs, I find. He had been in a car accident and temporarily needed to have his jaw wired shut, right? So the first album, he had songs like Through the Wire and Jesus Walks, where he was really pushing the envelope, talking about real shit. And Heard 'Em Say is one of my favorites because the piano, the beat, it's so soulful. It's great. And Adam Levine really kills the singing on that one. But Kanye's message about, like, you know, the issues of today getting ignored, even though you hear people talking about them, they just don't really get paid attention to. It's deep. It's really, in my opinion, his best song. 345 is Jimmy Vaughan with his song Dengue Woman. Now, Jimmy Vaughan is actually the guitarist of a rock band called the Thunderbirds and Stevie Ray Vaughan's brother. Now, he was the older brother, so he had actually gotten his start in music a little ahead of him. But Stevie was very known for his guitar playing, his singing, and that's what really propelled him to superstardom. Plus, it was Stevie Ray Vaughan in Double Trouble, whereas a lot of people didn't realize that there was another Vaughan playing. He was just in the Thunderbirds. He had more of a bluesier style, but in some ways he was just as capable on the guitar as Stevie. In fact, near the end of Stevie's life, like before he did die in the helicopter crash, him and Jimmy made like an album called Brotherly Love where they are ripping it together, and it's phenomenal. I'd recommend check that out. But this song, I picked it because it's in one of my favorite movies, From Dusk Till Dawn, and it really has a psychedelic vibe the way it's played in the scene of it. 344 goes to Ice-T's rock metal band called Body Count and their song Cop Killer. Now, this song was so controversial, they not only refused to put it on the radio, but they actually ended up making him cut it off the original Body Count debut, which it had built up surprisingly. It got leaked. It built up quite an underground buzz, and some people say that's kind of why their album didn't do so well, is because everybody was expecting to hear it. But yeah, well, I'll put it this way: everybody knows the NWA song "Fuck the Police," and this was really like that on steroids. Like Ice-T went even harder, like the metal driving groove. He's just singing and rapping pretty much the whole song, and he does both. About like just riding around on a motorcycle and killing cops, and it's a statement against like the racial prejudice that cops have, needing to stop. And in some ways, it's very profound and deep, but for being so badass and hard and controversial, they had to cut it off the record. Yeah, that's why it gets this spot. Goes to the queen of 80s R&B, Whitney Houston, with her first big hit song, I Wanna Know. Like, she went on to record a lot of other great songs in the future, and she has an incredible range and voice that they say is uncomparable in several cases. But I Wanna Know, it was the first song where she really knocked everybody out of the charts and took the number one spot, and it had that really upbeat, kind of cheesy 80s pop groovy rhythm to it, but it's catchy, it's almost irresistible, and it's one of the few songs where she really sounds happy singing, which is kind of why I picked it too, because when an artist is happy sometimes they sing their best and they don't even realize it, whereas when they're going through a lot, as she did in later years, the drug struggles, dealing with Bobby Brown's abuse, it's like they start to suffer. But you know, true artists make it work. I mean, that's why she still did songs like "I Will Always Love You," right? So great song though for sure. 342 goes to Nine Inch Nails with their song "Hurt." Now, Johnny Cash also did an amazing cover of this, but the original song has in its simplicity just the strings, the guitar, very minimum percussion, and the bass like kind of leading this. And he tells you this story, and there's such a sense of melancholy and pain, but yet there's points where the music is also so beautiful because there's such a deep level of romance at the core of the song's emotion. Now, Johnny Cash really made it his own when he did his own take on it because he was going through his own shit at the time that he related to the song. He heard it, he did his own version. But the original has a distinct vibe that I have never really felt or heard in another song, and that's what kind of makes it magical. Like, that's what shows, you know what? Nine Inch Nails are a really underappreciated rock group as a whole. 341 goes to Frederick Chopin with his song Nocturnes Op. 9 Number 2. Now, this song is one of the most beautiful examples of classical music, even being better than some of the stuff you will hear in the modern era. Now, it's one of those examples that if something is really good, it's timeless. Like it will always be good. And this piece is that. I mean, it's Chopin really playing some of his best, most beautiful work and also some of his most complex work. And that's why it's so famous. It's one of those pieces that it's like if you've ever heard Chopin, whether you realize it or not, it's probably through this piece. And it's beautiful, and it's just sad that, like, you know, a lot of that kind of music gets forgotten nowadays because some of it, as I was saying, is so much better than anything nowadays, and it's great. So that's definitely one I'd recommend for anybody who likes classical if you've never heard it. 340 goes to Janis Ian with her song "You Are Love." Now, she is an American folk rock singer that actually is most known for a song called 17. But she did this song, "You Are Love," for a song. It was basically for the soundtrack of Virus Fukasu Nohi, which was a Japanese film, but it had an international cast. So with the soundtrack, they went international too. They got her to sing the song, and what makes it beautiful is it captures the romance of the movie hidden within the plot perfectly, but also just as a song, it's so deep and moving and profound and romantic because she uses just that little bit of French in the chorus that kind of ties it all together. They say that French is the language of love, and it kind of basically makes the rest of what she's singing in English that much more deep and profound, like a real sense of profound love that you're chasing after. And it's just a beautiful piece. Definitely check it out. 339 is the Funk Pioneers, Lakeside, and their song Fantastic Voyage. Now, I first heard this song originally in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas on the Funk radio station. Now, what makes this piece really good is sadly they never had another hit that they were really well known for. This was kind of like the big jam that got around. But it's groovy, and the way they describe it is almost life being an adventure, like going on a voyage, taking a trip. I mean, it is kind of cheesy and it has the elements of like pirates and treasure. It's kind of funny in some ways for that reason too. But overall, musically, they have some great like synthesizers, some fantastic bass, the drums, and the way the harmony of the group actually all of them together it's incredible. It's like some Earth, Wind, and Fire shit as far as like how it all blends so incredible. So yeah, Lakeside, fantastic voyage. 338 is Destiny's Child with their song Lose My Breath. Now, they've been considered one of the greatest R&B trios of all time. And oddly enough, they originally started with four members. The two originally girls that accompanied Kelly Rowland and Beyonce had left to go form their own duo called Angel in Atlanta, but they never really made much. Um, Later on, Michelle joined the group, and that's when they started to make songs they became most known for, like Bootylicious and Survivor. But overall, I think Lose My Breath is one of the best songs they ever made because of the beat. The beat really has like this marching band groove to it that it feels like everybody has tried to copy, but they've never nailed that beat so precise the way they nail it on that song. And there's an awesome dance off. The video's crazy because they're dancing against themselves and it's trips. And it's a really catchy, groovy song. And that was probably them at their peak, their final prime, and just them at their best, you know? 337 is the jazz legend Coleman Hawkins with his song Sancticity. Now, he is regarded as one of the greatest tenor players of all time, and he took influence from people like Louis Armstrong, Lester Young, and he worked with a lot of them too. And at first, he had a very slapstick approach to his instrument, but over time, he learned to develop his own sort of harmonic style, just playing on the melody, just really emphasizing key notes and laid back that would be similar to Lester, although I'd say Lester was a lot more free flowing. But Coleman Hawkins, also in the bebop era, was one of the few successful from the old time era because he could also adapt it to play on faster grooves and rhythms. And Sancticity is really Coleman Hawkins at his best. He was like, regarded as, probably the cream of the crop, and it's because of songs like that. 336 is Bob Seger with his song Old Time Rock and Roll. Now, everybody is so familiar with that song just because of the iconic scene in Risky Business with Tom Cruise where he strolls out and it starts playing. And I mean, they even had Garfield imitate it in the Garfield movie. But that in itself is an incredible song, and he was a great singer, a great songwriter, very unique bluesy style to his playing and his singing. And what makes that great is he totally captures the essence of what rock and roll really is before it became like heavy metal, before it evolved into all these genres. Like, he brings it back to the raw rock and roll, like how it sounded when it first started. Like, you could even go as far back as like Chuck Berry and Elvis Presley, and even how Louis Jordan jumped into jump blues into rock and roll. And it's comparable to that, and he really has sort of the classic anthem for how that all sounds. Old time rock and roll. 335 goes to the old school rap crew Onyx, led by Sticky Fingers, Fredro Starr, and Sonsi, and their song Slam Harder. Now, they are most known for their biggest charting hit, Slam, which was actually produced by people who worked with Run DMC, and they were regarded as their first proteges. And even though they were considered one of the most hardcore underground rap groups of the era, they actually had managed to get commercial success for songs like Slam and stuff. Now, I picked Slam Harder because the way they used that Welcome Back Kotter theme song to make the beat and really up the groove, plus they really had time to phrase and say everything they wanted to do, whereas on the original Slam it sounds like they're rushed, but in a cool way, but it sounds like they were also trying to censor themselves so they could get radio play and not get cut for the censoring issues, right? But on Slam Harder, they're all out raw, like swearing. They just cut it out in the video and stuff, right? But they kill it because it's really true to how they are as a crew. 334 goes to Canadian rock singer and guitar player Sam Roberts and his song Hard Road. Now, He had a few other hits that did pretty good on the charts, but this is the one that everybody seems to remember him for. And I thought he's a very unique, distinct artist, but he might not get recognized too very early on. I thought this because he kind of has a non-commercial scruffy look to him, and plus especially a guy coming from Canada, you've got a lot of disadvantages in this music industry. But he is very talented, great singer songwriter, and I even loved how when he did some of his last work after Heart Road, he recorded in Ireland at a church and was using like the organs there to make stuff like The Gate, and it's wild. He has a very unique approach, and it even reminds me of like how old school rock used to be when it had a lot of folk rock roots, right? But yeah, it's great. Definitely check it out if you never heard it. 333 is Miki Matsubara with her song Stay With Me. Now, this song um, was actually a song that wasn't a very successful single when it was originally released. And it did have a video, which that along with the single that got re-released on the internet later, during this sort of internet craze of trying to find rare gems of other countries' music and share it with the world. And a lot of things got millions of views and blew up and became more successful and sold more records later. Now, Stay With Me was a prime example of one of these hits really blowing up. Miki herself actually passed away a few years ago. She was about 47, and she had been more successful in Japan for other songs. That was the Stay With Me was not the big hit there, but oddly enough, when that got re-released to the North American audiences via the internet, it blew up and has millions of views. So check it out. It's a groovy, wonderful J-pop jam. 332 is Bob Dylan with his song It Ain't Me, Babe. Now, the reason I chose this one is because this as a songwriting example shows, even in the simplest setting, what a brilliant songwriter and a genius Bob Dylan really was. Like, he is considered the father of folk music in many ways because he could take the simple everyday things and he could make them so deep and profound. He had such a great use of his words, and even with a song like this, it's a simple romance tune of almost unrequited love, like getting rejected because they don't think they're good enough for you. But the simple honesty of the melody and the lyrics is just, it's fantastic. And I mean, many other people went on to record this song too, like Johnny Cash did a fantastic duet version with June Carter Cash. So yeah, it shows he went on to write a lot more deep and profound songs, but even in the simplest example, it's just incredible. 331 is the Latina singer Selena and her song Dreaming of You. Now, a lot of people have heard that name. They don't really know much about her. She had a biopic made about her that Jennifer Lopez starred and played the role, sang the songs. But she was a singer that, like in the movie, died very tragically just before she could really make the big time and have international success. She had managed to make a few songs that, for a Latina artist at the time, were unheard of to chart so high. Dreaming of You was one of them. Like, once she sang in English, she broke into the international market. The Americans started eating it up, and she was actually looking forward to a very promising career. But I guess she had fallen in love. She had kind of wanted out of the music industry, and her manager was a friend and afraid to lose her because apparently she was planning to fire her too. So she went crazy and killed her. And that's the tragedy, that we never got to see more of anything like Dreaming of You, because it really is a beautiful song. 330 is the female rapper Jean Grae with her song It's a Rap. Now, this came from the mixtape The Orchestra Files. She's an underground rapper. She's worked with a lot of underground legends like Immortal Technique and even people like The Roots and stuff. So she's pretty solid lyrically. In fact, I would say she is probably one of the most skilled female lyricists out there. Like, definitely up there with like your Lauryn Hill, your Remy Ma, and even your Foxy Brown. Like, you can't mention them without mentioning Jean Grae. And in fact, some ways her style is very like it has a shape shifting metamorphic approach that it's like you never really know just how hard she's gonna throw those rhymes at you. But when she does hit you, it's like liquid. Once it's on you, it's everywhere. And she has an incredible sort of lyrical gift with that. That is, I've never even seen in many rappers in general. So, even for a female rapper, she should just get more credit as a good rapper, too. Stan Getz with his song Autumn Leaves. Now, this is a popular jazz standard that has been covered by many artists, but the reason I chose Stan Getz' rendition in particular is because he plays some of the most fantastic saxophone work I've ever heard. Just on the simplest and most beautiful melody, Stan Getz was a natural like that. He had like an overwhelming ability, and from the stories I had heard, like people like Ben Webster say he could take like 42 choruses, like he'd be playing almost an hour straight, just ripping it, maybe more, like sometimes a few hours. And he made the joke that like, oh, I should go watch Gone with the Wind, and by the time it's over he'll be done his solo. Right? But he really could play incredible, and he was instrumental in helping a lot of other musicians like Chet Baker start as well. So definitely a worthy contender for that spot. 328 goes to Pink Floyd with their song Money. Now, with Pink Floyd, they have so many great songs, it really was a tough toss up. And I was trying to think of like one that aren't too long, that have gotten a lot of radio play, that are overall profound. Like, there were a lot of things to take in consideration. I picked Money, and the reason I picked Money is because the way they use the sound effects of the cash register, the way it's really got that bluesy truth that money is really the root of all evil. It's what makes the world go round, but it's also what causes all the problems. And it's such a deep take on such a like general thing that everybody could relate to. I mean, Comfortably Numb is very beautiful and psychedelic and unique in its own way, and I would even say like Another Brick in the Wall is fantastic too. But overall, I'm like, you just can't go wrong with Money. That's a solid jam. Yeah. 327 goes to Lonnie Liston Smith with his composition, A Garden of Peace. Now, he was a jazz pianist who actually recently passed away as well, and may he rest in peace. But this piece was very beautiful in its simplicity, and I mean, I first actually heard it as a sample in the song by Jay-Z, Dead Presidents, and Dead Presidents 2. But the overall melody, like if you were to just sit there and play that, it's very moving. It's still, it's got the right amount of sadness, the right amount of like joy, wanting to come up, to rise above struggle. It's very deep, and it's a fantastic example of why they say there's still never another pianist who played quite the same style as he did. And that piece in itself proves it, and it's just great. I definitely would recommend it to anybody who just wants something relaxing to listen to. 326 goes to former D12 member Bizarre and his song Gospel Weed Song. Now, he is a rapper that actually does sing sometimes, and he sings very funny random things, and it's the same with his rapping, which makes him sound, as his name suggests, bizarre. But that was actually one of the key points that made the group very good. Besides, you had the leader Proof, you had con artist Kanye, Eminem, and Swifty McVeigh. But what made Bizarre great is he was the most random. You never really knew what he was going to say. And whatever he was going to say was probably going to be shocking. Either make you laugh, gasp, or like, whoa. But it's a great song because it really, as the song suggests, it sounds like a gospel song. He's singing about smoking weed, relaxing, and not giving a damn. And it's just a really good, relaxing song to mellow out and vibe. 325 is the country rock southern group Lynyrd Skynyrd and their song Freebird. Now, they have a lot of songs, and they are considered one of the most iconic rock groups of all time. It goes without saying. They had a very distinct style that really roots in like southern country, rock, and blues, all kind of jumbled together. But what makes Freebird such a wonderful piece, like it's the solos, but it's how the song starts so slow. It builds just gradually on that, like it's climbing higher, and it's almost like the bird is taking flight. And it's like if you were really to break down the song, it's like the bird is resting in the beginning of the song, and then the bird starts to regain its confidence. It starts flapping its wings, and then by the time the solo starts to take off, it's flying. And once it starts flying, it goes a million miles out into the atmosphere like a rocket. So it's very cool how they demonstrate that musically. Like the bird is free, it could fly anywhere, and it proves it. So very great jam. 324, we have the 80s pop diva Tiffany with her song I Think We're Alone Now. Now, the crazy thing about her was she had reached an enormous amount of popularity, like an unprecedented level. And this was in the 80s, right? So this was before your Britney Spears, your Christina Aguilera's, but I would even say it's fair to say she was the equivalent, like in that era. And oddly enough, it's funny because she had embarked on a thing which helped this song to become really successful, like mall tours, right? So she'd go perform this song. It was great, and you could actually meet her, and she'd be in the food court getting a bite to eat after. And this was a popular thing that a few people did in the 80s, but after that era died, that sort of trend of performing at malls and stuff like that kind of died. But she was the queen of that, and for that, I was like, yeah, you know what? I'll give Tiffany her due. 323 is Styles P, a rapper who is a member of the Lox, also known as D Block, and his song Good Times in brackets I Get Hot. Now, he had already established a pretty good reputation working with the Rough Riders, the other members of the Lox, Chic Luch, and Jadakiss, and even appearing on other rappers like Mace, DMX, and Jay-Z's albums. So he was a pretty well-respected underground rapper by the time he actually dropped his debut album and his first single. Now, oddly enough, he released other songs after this that were a lot more serious, conscious, well respected too, even in the hip hop community. But this was always considered to be his biggest hit because even though he's got the sped up sample of I Get High, and they kind of had to cut out certain drug references in the radio version, it's still his most popular song, and it's that jam that everybody listens to when you get high. But it also shows he could adapt his style in any format, major or underground. 322 is the country group The Mavericks and their song Foolish Heart. Now, I first heard this song in the From Dusk Till Dawn soundtrack, which it also appears in the movie where Harvey Keitel is talking with his children, like before they actually get closer to Mexico. It plays in the background. Now, it's actually a very beautiful song because his personification and use of describing like the heart as its own sort of separate entity, like leading him to all this path of despair and sadness. It's very relatable, and it's beautiful the way he has like the girls harmonizing the chorus in the background as he sings. But it's just a really wonderful song, and it kind of shows like this wasn't really the greatest biggest hit for them, but it was probably one of their most beautiful and underappreciated songs for that reason. Next, we have the classic rock group Aerosmith coming in at 321 with Train Kept a Rolling. Now, this song is really great because it has a very hard rock edge to it, which they've become known for. It's got a touch of blues. It's a dynamic song, and they have a lot of great songs. I mean, they're known for songs like Dream On and Sweet Emotion and Jamie's Got a Gun, the list goes on. It's really great. But what makes them really stand out with this song is they show just how hard they can rock. Like they crank up the voltage to the maximum level. The way the tune builds, it's almost like a train that's just gradually getting faster and faster and faster. And the way his vocals become more shrill and shrieky as it progresses, it just gets more intense. It's fantastic. That's why I'm like, you know what? Overall, that's my favorite Aerosmith song. 320 is MOP with a song that I can't say out loud because I'm a white guy and I don't want to get beat up for using the N word. But the title is, and you'll see it flash up on the screen. So that'll be your cue of what it is. Just because, yeah, we want to get the issues of that out of the way just so we can actually focus on how good the song is. I mean, the beat was made by DJ Premier and it's slammed. I mean, it is one of the like funkiest, hard, groovy, jazziest songs ever. And then MOP, a friend of mine, Shane, once described him as like if DMX split in two, like, you know, it would be like that. And it's wild because it's pretty awesome how they add to each other's ad libs and emphasize and make it crazier. And they kind of go back and forth, right? It's a duo, Billy Dan's and Little Fame. So together they kill it. And this song is one of my favorite rap songs ever, just period. Yeah. 319 goes to Junko Ohashi with her song I Love You So. Now, she had made an album in the late 70s, maybe early 80s, I'm not exactly sure, but this album came out early in the 80s, and it's a really prime example of Japanese pop. But what makes it distinct among all the other albums of that category in the era is that it was actually made right in New York, so it was made by a lot of American producers. She was bilingual to an extent, so she actually did have songs that had either pure English or a mix of the two. Now, with this song, it is a mix of the two. She's singing parts in English, but predominantly Japanese. But it's a love song, and love is a very hard concept to describe sometimes in their language and in their culture, like true love, right? So she sings that part in English, but everything else leading up explains why she loves that person. And it's a marvelous song. Flutes, everything's banging. 318 goes to the rock band Poison with their song Nothing But a Good Time. Now, they're most famous for a song called Every Rose Has Its Thorn, and it's a really good song too, especially for a ballad. But the reason I chose Nothing But a Good Time, once again, kind of borders onto the whole rock and really hard thing, right? Like as a classic rock lover, I love when they got that like awesome riff, and it's really a relatable jam about, you know, just going out, having a party, having a good time, and you can't really argue with a song like that. Now it's funny because when I had first heard that, it was in the movie Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and I didn't even know what song it was. I actually had to search up the soundtrack just to be like, hey, what was that song playing there? That had a good beat, a good groove. It was catchy, right? And then I was like, oh, it's Poison, and I had heard of them because you know, Every Rose Has Its Thorn. So I was like, oh shit, I love this song. So that's why I guess this spot. 317 goes to former Supreme singer Diana Ross with her song Why Do Fools Fall in Love? Now, this is a cover actually by Frankie and the Teenagers, but what makes her version, in my opinion, just as good as the original is she manages to take the whole beautiful, innocent, sort of teenage puppy love concept, but then add all the sort of advanced instrumentation and the synthesizers and the way recording and music would have progressed by the era it was made, which it's a really fantastic sort of spin on it in that sense because the original is classic, it's timeless. So to actually take it, do something different with it, and make it still sound just as good, or if not good in its own way at least, then that's what shows you know, what an incredible artist she is. And it's a great take on the song because I mean, I heard Ninth Wonder actually sample it for another song he produced for Anne Marie called Why Don't We Fall in Love, and just the use of the sample, it all ties together. It's marvelous. 316 is Ghostface Killa with his song The Champ. Now, he started out in Wu-Tang Clan, And it was actually after meeting Riz and stuff, he got the group together and, got a deal on that front. Now, when they all signed as the Wu-Tang Clan, they were free to go their own ways, and Ghostface Killa was among one of the first members of the group to make a solo album. Now, this was later in his career, but this was around the time he had actually dealt with some other issues as far as rap beef, right? So he was trying to assert himself. And I mean, the lines, the beat, it's all fire. I mean, he's got a Rocky sample of the coach hyping him up at the beginning, and then he just rips it. I mean, a lot of his lines are so iconic and influential. He spits some of the best rap lines ever, period. And it's like I've heard Kanye West rip it off, Lil Wayne, everybody, because he says some cream of the crop, witty metaphors and rhymes to just show how up to par he is with it. 315 is Cream with their song Sunshine of Your Love. Now, they were a group that Eric Clapton started and helped to build, and I mean, you even hear that opening smoky blues sounding guitar riff, and it sounds like some wild shit's gonna happen, right? And I mean, the transitions are incredible because they're very drastic, but I mean, this song is so influential and instantly recognizable. It's like I've heard them use it in Goodfellas. I've heard the music in School of Rock, like you name it, anywhere where there's just a nice sort of niche to throw in a rock song, they've used it. But it's really a marvelous song because it's simple as far as lyrics, but it very deep and poetic. And the music itself reflects it because at points it's very simple, it's catchy, it's understandable. But then when it builds, it gets really intense and complex. So overall, classic rock masterpiece. 314 is Daft Punk with their song Da Funk. Now, I will honestly admit I'm not the greatest fan of Daft Punk, but every genre has its gems. And what I find interesting is they're more of like an electronic and like sort of dance pop group. They use a lot of techno and synthesizers and sped up arrangements and whatnot. But what makes this song great is, well, it borders into funk, as the title suggests, and it's really got some fantastic natural instrumentation that build a dance groove. So it's still Daft Punk, but at the same time it sounds like something else. It's it's its own weird thing. And it's cool because the video has this guy talking in a dog suit, like as a mascot through it, and it's its own weird sort of video too. So it's very reflective of how the song was, not just for them, but for music itself. It's a very interesting piece. 313 is the 80s rock group Loverboy and their song Working for the Weekend. Now, they also have a few other really great songs. They mostly had their popularity in the 80s, right? But I mean, they had other songs like Turn It Loose, and they were a very original sounding band in the sense that they were competing in an era where many of the bands were all riffing off of the same sort of formulas. But what made them great is they had a kick-ass singer. They really knew how to balance out the guitar, which Working for the Weekend is some of the best work with that. I mean, they had a great solo. It's really fast, and it's like the kind of tempo, like if you were just driving down a racetrack, that totally could be playing, right? Like it's very fast driven. It's great. And the first time I actually heard that song was in Grand Theft Auto Vice City, and I remember just driving in the game to it, and it's cruising material for sure. 312 goes to Maestro Fresh West with his song Let Your Backbone Slide. Now, he's a Canadian rapper, and that's what's really cool, is because we don't really have that many of them up here, and a lot of them that are out there haven't really reached that much mainstream success without going to America or selling out, as we'll say bluntly. But Maestro Fresh West came out in the old school era, and he was one of the first Canadian artists to ever have like a number one, like hot selling rap single. And I mean, obviously from there we would get Buck 65, we would get your Classified, your Chaos, your Shad, your Cadence Weapon. yours truly, Super Kami Guru Alucard, but Maestro Fresh West paved the way. I mean, before him, there was no rapper from Canada. And I mean, he was just as lyrically witty and fresh with it as any of the competitors at the time. And he only had that one hit. His first album sold really well, but he took the money, he invested into acting, and he's also worked with a lot of other artists, but he just really hasn't gotten his due since then. 311 is Pink with her song True Love, which is a duet with Lily Allen, and both are very unique artists, like very underrated, very underappreciated, but very talented, distinct styles. I mean, I remember hearing songs like Let's Get the Party Started and thinking, you know what, Pink's kind of strange, like appearance and everything, but she's got a cool, unique style. It's original. And that's what makes a great artist. And Lily Allen is actually one of my personal favorites. I won't even lie. Like I saw her in concert. I had, in fact, I have them on my computer, but I had every single album of hers on CD. Right, so big fan of her. And to hear them both together, such a deep and wonderful song. I mean, that's why it makes it Pink's favorite song for me, is because they both are really great on it, and it's a wonderful song, definitely. 310 is country singer and legend Willie Nelson and his song Crazy. Now, this song has been covered by a lot of other people too, but it's a song he wrote that really shows what a great songwriter he was. And plus, anybody who's heard his version and heard other versions could tell you. They sang it great, especially if they've got a good voice. It's a great song. But Willie, this is one of the songs that he himself sings the best. And it could happen to be because he wrote it, but I think there's a sense of emotion that is tied with it that works really well with his voice, and it's a strong point for him. And he's always been a very unique artist. I mean, he's not afraid to work with anybody. I mean, he's worked with Ray Charles, he's worked with Snoop Dogg. I mean, he's very explorative as an artist, and that's why I think he's great. But even the simplest things like Crazy show what a great songwriter he really is too. 309 goes to D Block with their song Take Everything. Now, D Block is also known as the Locks. It consists of Jadakiss, Sheik Luch, and Styles P, also formerly J Hood, but they had issues with that, and that's why it didn't work out. Now, this song was released on a mixtape of D Blocks, and it's great because they used the Cheers theme song sped up and kind of make it a song about taking everything, right? So hearing them each do their verses, they're all killing it. Their lyrics are on point. The beat is banging, and it's just a really tight overall song because it's not what you would expect for the Cheers theme song getting sampled, but it's balling, and I love it. That's why I was like, you know what? That is D Block's best song right there. Now, I think they didn't release it on an album because of the copyright issues, which is why they just did it as a mixtape song. But for a mixtape song, it's album worthy because it's ballin'. 308 goes to Motley Crue with their song Live Wire. Now, they have quite a distinct style. They're known for having a very wild sort of lifestyle too. A lot of controversy with some of the members getting involved and stuff, but overall they were quite solid musicians, and I think that often gets overlooked. I mean, the drums were really banging with this song too, especially. I mean, the drums were fast. It builds and then it ceases. It's almost like a tension and release, but there's elements of 80s rock, there's elements of punk, there's so many things that really make this great. And his singing, Vince is singing on it, is fantastic. The bass too is just, it's bang on. And that's why it's sad that they don't really get respected as like a lot of the titans that came out in their era do. But overall, that song shows just what good musicians they all were. 307 is former Terror Squad member Cuban Link with his song Still Telling Lies featuring Tony Sunshine. Now, a lot of people know him because he was like essentially Big Pun's best friend. He was almost like a brother to him. Him, Triple Ace, and Big Pun all grew up in the Bronx. They met Fat Joe. He knew Armageddon, and Pun and Armageddon and Joe all new prospects, so they formed that. However, when he passed, Fat Joe had released a couple albums. Big Pun had just released his second album, and Cuban Link was going to be next to go up. He had recorded the whole album, and the songs are fantastic. They're all amazing, but it never got released. It got shelved and he got dropped, and his career kind of fell apart after that because he got in a fight with Fat Joe and Sunkiss, where he basically defended Fat Joe against Sunkiss. Sunkiss had a knife, it left him a scar, and that broke everything up. But songs like Still Telling Lies show you Cuban Link, just like he says on The Glamour Life, he was next to Pun to succeed him. 306 is Shoko Nakagawa with her song Dete Koi Tobi Kiri Senkai Power. Now, this song is actually the ending theme song for the original Dragon Ball Z show. And it's a great song overall because it captures the elements of the show very well, especially from the early points of Gohan growing up to becoming Teen Gohan. It captures that aspect, the innocence, the naiveness, right? There's some funny references in there. The lyrics are actually constructed of a lot of katakana and romaji to kind of fill in the spots that are a little more trickier to explain in Japanese. But the beat is groovy, and I can honestly say this song had a strong influence on me because the idea of it is Zenkai power, like full recovery through the mind and the body's energy. Combined, you have like the greatest source of power, and that's what Zenkai power is that I basically made as my song. 305 goes to Jerry Lee Lewis with his song Great Balls of Fire. Now, I had actually heard of him before, like I had actually heard him, because in Top Gun, there's the scene where Goose's character plays the song on the piano. And what I realized when I'd actually heard him for the first time is it's so much more complex even playing that song because he was a fantastic pianist. I won't even say he was the greatest or most remarkable singer. He had a decent voice, but what really highlighted his music is he had the level of like a jazz stride piano master, but he brought that into rock and roll. And still to this day, there has not really been many people who you could really look at that would be on that level in that category. So that's why, like a song like that, showing how good he was really on the piano, it's timeless. Like, and for sure, that's why I put it at this spot. 304 is Elise Estrada with her song Insatiable. Now, I'd actually accidentally heard this song when I was watching Much Music one day, and oddly enough, she's a Canadian Filipino singer that hasn't really released an album yet, and she's only released that and another song online. She hasn't really gotten the ball rolling on her career, but I thought she had a very distinct sound, a unique mix of, you could hear the Filipino influence, like of their culture's music, mixed with like the idea of what would be your modern R&B or pop. And it was a very interesting combo that I haven't really heard that much of, being honest, but it was distinct and memorable, and it's kind of sad that they haven't gotten the ball rolling. Oddly enough, I could have had the opportunity to make a song with them. Would have cost a few grand, but that was when I was dealing with another manager and it didn't really fall through, sadly. But would have been great. 303 is Mos Def of the rap crew Black Star, which he formed with Talib Kweli, and his song Mathematics. Now, the beat is produced by DJ Premier, a fantastic producer. He's got a lot of produced work on this list, not even gonna front, because he's almost sort of like the king of New York hip hop production, we'll say. But what makes this song great too is the way Mos Def raps on it. It really shows what a great rapper he is, and it's not even that he's throwing mad amounts of lyrics or he's rapping like the craziest amount of rhyme schemes in a short time, but what he's doing is he's actually giving you parables. And it's rare to actually see a rapper feed you parables and rhymes that actually make sense and go with the beat. And Mos Def definitely captures that perfectly in a level I have never heard any other rapper to this day do. So that song is great. I mean, it's got samples from Fat Joe talking about mathematics and Erykah Badu singing "Do Your Math." So it's just great. Definitely check that one out. 302 is the blues legend Robert Johnson with his song Crossroad Blues. Now, the interesting historical fact of this song is it's actually the first almost supernaturally bridged song because it is really the idea of selling your soul to the devil. And some people sort of have the urban myth and the legend around it that he sold his soul at the crossroads to like be able to play the guitar as good as he did. And you hear it and it is supernaturally incredible. I mean, this guy is hitting notes like and the weirdest patterns. It all resolves perfectly, but it's like it sounds otherworldly. It's kind of incredible. In fact, a lot of rock musicians, heavy metal artists give credit to him. People like Eric Clapton and stuff too, even because he had such a distinct style on the guitar. It's like, where did it come from? And the singing, the idea behind it, I mean, they had even referenced it in the show Supernatural. So there's definitely the potential for scary shit at work there. 301 is Cab Calloway with his song Jumpin' Jive. Now, this will be the last one for this episode of our programs where we count down to number one. But for 301, it had to be a good rounder off, you know? We're actually breaking out of the 300s after next episode. So I sat there and I thought, okay, Jazz Jam. And this one, it stuck out because it's how I would always associate Cab Calloway. I mean, he had other songs that were really big hit singles too, like Minnie the Moocher and, you know, things like that. But what made this one really great is it appears in stormy weather, and he had the Nicholas brothers like accompanying backup vocals and dancing. So you hear them on the track, like doing the backup vocals, and it's like when there's certain parts in the song and peaks where it gets crazy, you can actually imagine the dancing in your head, and it is like the most wild, like make you want to jam, but you couldn't dance nowhere as good as what you imagine in your mind kind of songs. I mean, watching them dance, they sound animated. Anyways, though, that is the conclusion. And what I actually meant to say was they look animated. Like, it looks like you would have them animated nowadays. You could perfectly capture that motion, but how the hell are they doing that in real life? And I mean, I've seen them in other things too, where they're running up walls. They're doing the Matrix like Keanu Reeves, but no wires. Like, they just have a run and start and incredible athletic ability. It's crazy. You'll see them do splits. You ever watch that video, Jump and Jive? It'll blow your mind. It still blows people's minds to this day. I mean, MC Hammer, Gregory Hines, they all attribute those as the big influences, like the greatest dancers ever. But yeah, getting back to the main point, since we're rounding off the episode of the show, we have now made it to 301. Next episode, we will basically count down from 300 to 251, and that will be the halfway point. We've now reached halfway down the 500 list. 250 more to go after that. But like I say in the beginning of all these programs, this is just my opinion. I'm just, sharing certain songs that have influenced me and inspired me, and certain songs that I would rank as personal favorites, right? So if you get curious to check some of them out, then I accomplished my goal. Now, I'm not going to make any promises again and say that, oh, I'm going to make another episode tomorrow or nothing, just because I've got so much going on making a new album. This is part of the promotion, but it's just hectic to juggle it all together, right? But I will say a week from now, I will have the next episode up, and hopefully things will start to progress with the album. I mean, that's been stressful enough too, but once that progresses, hopefully we can finish off the other parts faster. But hope you enjoyed the presentation. Have a good night and stay tuned for part 5.